Unit 14, Welding Symbols. To make welds indicated on a drawing, the welder must be able to interpret welding symbols. Symbols are used to condense a large quantity of information about the weld into a small amount of space. This is shown on figure 14-1. A welding symbol is a graphic assembly of the elements needed to fully specify weld requirements. Welding symbols simplify communication between engineers who design the product and shop personnel who must fabricate the product. Used on drawing, symbols contain the data needed to tell a welder the exact type of weld wanted by the designer or engineer. Elements of a welding symbol. Unless needed for clarity, all elements do not have to be used on every welding symbol. Only the reference line and arrow are required. The 8 possible elements of a welding symbol include reference line, weld symbol, arrow, tail, supplementary symbols, dimensions, finish symbols, notations pertaining to the process, filler metal, and related standard. Figure 14-2, the arrow, reference line, tail, weld all around symbol, weld in the field, your length of your weld, the pitch of your weld, so center to center spacing, your root opening, your groove angle, your contour, your finish, groove weld size, depth of bevel. Reference line. The reference line is the backbone or required central element of the welding symbol. It is always shown in a horizontal position. Other elements describing weld requirements are located on, above, below, and/or either end of the reference line. Weld symbol. The basic weld symbol should be differentiated from the welding symbol. The basic weld symbol depicts the cross-sectional shape of the weld or joint. It is one part of the welding symbol. Study the basic weld symbol shown in figure 14-3. Memorize the names and shapes of the basic weld symbols. The reference line is shown as a dashed line. Square groove, scrape groove, V groove, bevel groove, U groove, J groove, flared V groove, flared bevel, fillet, plug, slot, stud, spot or projection, seam, back or backing, surfacing, and edge. Either a basic weld symbol or notations in the tail are required on a welding symbol. In some situations, however, both elements may be included on a welding symbol to furnish complete welding specifications. Arrow. An arrow connects the reference line of the welding symbol to one side of the joint to be welded. The shape and location of the arrow are important. The use of an arrow is required. Running the arrow from the reference line to one side of the required weld indicates the placement of a fillet, groove, or edge welds. The lower side of the reference line is called the arrow side. It indicates the same side or near side of the joint. Figure 14-14. A weld symbol below the reference line a weld symbol below the reference line signifies the weld should be on the arrow side or same side of the joint. The opposite side of the arrow side is considered the other side. It is located on the upper side of the reference line. The other side indicates the far side of the joint. When the weld symbol is above the reference line, the weld is only required on the other side, or the opposite side of the joint. Weld symbols on both sides of the reference line indicate welds are needed on both the arrow side and the other side of the weld joint. The arrow and bevel and J groove welds uses a bent leader or a broken leader. The arrow head points to the particular section to be prepared, either by machining, flame cut, air carbon arc gouging, or some other process. When plug, slot, spot, seam, and projection welds are required, the arrow points to the outer surface of the one of the joint members at the center line of the desired weld. This member is considered the arrow side member. The other section of the joint is the other side member. Some resistance welds have no arrow side or other side significance because the weld is made at the interface of the members. Joints having more than one type of weld have a weld symbol for each weld. Multiple reference lines may also be used to indicate the sequence of welding a joint. The reference line closest to the leader shows the weld that is made first. Figure 1410 shows the sequence of a V-groove weld and U-groove back gouge. A chart showing basic weld symbols and their location significance is given in Figure 1411. Learn to name each weld symbol and explain its location on the joint. Tail. A tail contains notes pertaining to the process, filler metal, and related standards needed to establish specific weld requirements. 14-12. If notations are not used, the tail element may be omitted. In this tail, MIG welding is the process reference must be used to indicate welding process desired. Supplementary symbols. Supplementary symbols are often included with basic weld symbols to provide more specific weld data not provided by other elements in the welding symbol. Supplementary weld symbols are shown in Figure 14-13. The weld all around symbol signifies the weld is to be made completely around the joint without any interruption. A field weld symbol indicates that weld is not done where the unit is initially made. Instead, it is made in the field. The backing weld symbol indicates a bead-type backing weld on the opposite side of the regular weld. This is pictured in Figure 14-16. A back weld is made after the required weld indicated by the symbol is complete. The back weld assures full weld material through the joint, sometimes called complete joint penetration. Joint penetration refers to the distance the weld metal extends from the weld face into a joint, not including weld reinforcement. Figure 14-17 shows a back weld. Notice the groove weld is made first and the back weld is used to provide a full penetration and full strength. Figure 14-18 shows the back weld symbol. Back weld is listed in the tail. The melt-through symbol is used when complete joint penetration is required in a weld made from only one side. Figure 14-19, it also ensures 100% weld penetration. Dimensions. Weld dimensions may be indicated in inches, fractions of an inch, or in millimeters. Angles are specified in degrees. The weld side dimension is placed on the left side of the weld symbol. The weld length is shown on the right side of the weld symbol. No length dimension is given when the weld is to be made the full length of the joint. Information on the weld dimensions as it refers to specific types of welds is included in subsequent units. Contour and finish symbols. A contour symbol is used with the weld symbol when the finish shape of the weld is important. If a weld is to be contoured or finished, other than being cleaned, a finish symbol is included with the contour symbol. The finish symbol indicates the method, not the degree of finish. Standard finishing methods are designated by symbols and include the following: chipping, grinding, H for hammering, M for machining, R for rolling. Notation. The notation is information called out in the tail of the welding symbol. It is often in the form of abbreviations or notes. Sometimes there is insufficient room in the tail for all the notation. In that case, a reference given in the tail states where more information on the notation can be found elsewhere on the print. A notation may indicate a welding process by using a standard abbreviation form. Refer to Figure 14-23 for the letter designation of welding and related process. Study this table carefully. Wow, there's a lot. Non-preferred welding non-preferred weld symbols. And the non-preferred weld symbols have been replaced by new symbols. They are not used on newer prints. However, non-preferred weld symbols may still be found on old prints and are included in Figure 14-24 for reference purposes. Reading and explaining a welding symbol. Often you may have to explain or discuss a welding symbol with a coworker or a supervisor. It is a good practice to follow a consistent pattern when explaining the symbol. The symbol used in Figure 14-25 shows a fillet weld on the arrow side. Use the pattern when explaining the symbol. State the weld to be made first. Then state the side on which the weld is to be made. State the size of the weld or the amount of the joint preparation. State the angle of the preparation, depth of penetration, and finish requirements. State other supplemental information such as a weld all around, or a field weld. Refer to Figure 14-26 using the pattern just given. It may be explained as follows. This symbol is a V-groove weld on the arrow side with a quarter 0.25 depth of penetration at the included angle of 60 degrees made flush after welding. International welding symbols. Although the American Weld Society has developed a standard of welding, brazing, and non-destructive examination symbols for use in the United States, other countries may use a different symbol or a different standard of symbols. The International Organization for Standardization, ISO, developed a standard for welding symbols that is often used in Europe and for other products sold in the European community. The standard ISO 2553 uses a somewhat different method to represent welding symbols. The main difference between the AWS system and the iOS system is that the iOS system uses an additional horizontal reference line called an identification line. On horizontal reference line is solid like those used in the AWS system, but the second horizontal reference line is dashed as shown in Figure 14-27. This dashed line is always used to show the other side of the joint. The dashed line may be placed above or below the solid line. So you must remember that the dashed line indicates the other side of the joint. Figure 14-28 shows you the application of the dashed line. ISO 2553 weld symbols are similar to AWS symbols, but there are some slight shape differences. Additionally, ISO 2553 includes a few symbols not found in the AWS standard. The ISO 2553 edge weld symbol is different from the AWS edge weld symbol. Another major difference between the AWS and iOS standards is the dimensioning of fillet welds. For AWS fillet weld dimensioning, the leg dimension is given in the symbol. Figure 14-30 shows a fillet weld on the arrow side of the joint with a 0.25 equal leg. Additional information is provided in Unit 15. ISO 2553 requires that either the letter A or the letter Z be placed in front of the fillet weld symbol. The letter A indicates the fillet dimension given in the symbol is the throat dimension of the weld. The letter Z is in the dimension given in the symbol is the leg dimension of the weld. Example 14-31 shows the example of the dimensioning method.